The notification from my banking app lit up my phone screen. Transfer complete, $2,000 sent to Julia G. I stared at it while waiting for my instant ramen to cook in the office microwave, trying to ignore the growl in my stomach. That transfer meant plain noodles for dinner again, but mom and dad needed the money more than I needed takeout. My name is Viviana, and for the past 5 years, I've sent half my paycheck home every month. It started when dad lost his job at the manufacturing plant. I still remember mom's tears during that first desperate call. Mi amor, we don't know what to do, she'd sobbed. The mortgage, your father's medication. I'd promised to help until they got back on their feet. That was 2018. Now it's 2023, and I'm still their ATM. The microwave beeped. As I stirred my sad dinner, my coworker Jessica walked in with a bag of Thai food that made my mouth water. Girl, you're killing it in finance, but eating like a college student, she said, eyeing my cup noodles. Come on, let me treat you to real food. I shook my head. Thanks, but I'm good. Just trying to save money. For what? That promotion's basically yours. You should celebrate. If only she knew. The promotion would mean more money for home, not me. I pulled out my phone, thumbing through Instagram to distract myself. My younger brother Zach's latest post popped up, him grinning beside a shiny Tesla, caption reading, New toy, blessed. My chopsticks froze halfway to my mouth. That car had to cost at least 60 grand. How did he? Viviana, Jessica's voice snapped me back. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Yeah, just. My brother got a new car. Weird timing with my parents struggling so much. Jessica frowned. The ones you send money to every month? Maybe they're doing better than. They're not, I cut her off, perhaps too sharply. Zach probably leased it or something. That weekend, I decided to surprise my parents with a visit. The 2-hour drive from New York to their house in New Jersey gave me too much time to think. I'd canceled my dental work last month to send extra money when mom said their heating bill was overwhelming. The month before that, I'd backed out of my best friend Serena's destination wedding because the flights were too expensive. I pulled up to their familiar 2-story house around noon, noting Dad's old Camry in the driveway. But as I reached for the front door handle, voices drifted through the open kitchen window. And she actually believed we needed money for your father's heart medication. Mom's laugh rang out. Ay, mijijo, you should have seen her face when I cried on the phone. Mom, you're evil, Zach's voice replied, amused. But thanks for the help with the down payment. This car is sick. You deserve it, baby. Your sister makes good money. She can afford to help her family. Did you see her last month? Still wearing that same old coat from college? She's either stupid or just cheap. My hand fell from the door handle. The world tilted sideways as 5 years of sacrifices crashed down around me. Speaking of Vivi, Zach continued, don't tell her about the condo closing next week. She might get suspicious if she knows I'm buying property. Please, Mom scoffed. That girl would believe anything. Remember when your father pretended to be laid off? She started sending money the next day. Antonio didn't even have to try hard. One sad phone call, and she opened her wallet. They were laughing, actually laughing about deceiving me. My phone buzzed, another bank notification. The transfer I'd made an hour ago had cleared, $2,100 of my hard-earned money sent to people who were mocking me through an open window. I backed away silently, tears burning my eyes. In my car, I pulled up my banking app with trembling fingers. 5 years of transfers, 60 months of halved paychecks, over $100,000 gone to fund my brother's luxury lifestyle while I ate ramen and delayed medical care. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Mi amor, did you get my message about the extra utilities this month? We're a little short. I stared at it until the screen went dark, then started my car. The entire drive back to New York, their laughter echoed in my head. But underneath the hurt, something else was building, a cold, precise anger that felt like clarity. They wanted to play games with money? Fine. I'm a financial analyst. Numbers are my language, and I was about to become very, very fluent in the dialect of revenge. You haven't touched your wine in 20 minutes, Serena said, studying me across our tiny apartment kitchen table. And you're doing that thing with your spreadsheets where you look like you're planning a murder. I barely glanced up from my laptop. 3 browser windows were open, my bank statements, Zach's Instagram, and a timeline I was building in Excel. Not murder, just connecting some dots. It's midnight on a Tuesday, she pressed. What dots need connecting at midnight? I spun my laptop around to show her. See this post? Zach with his Tesla, dated March 15th. Now look at my bank statement from March 12th, a $4,000 emergency transfer because mom said their roof was leaking. Serena leaned forward, wine forgotten. No way. Oh, it gets better. I clicked through more tabs. This is his new condo listing, $450,000. And here's mom's text from last year about dad needing cardiac surgery. Guess what? No surgery. But I sent them $15,000 for medical bills that mysteriously lined up with Zach's down payment timing. Those manipulative pieces of. My phone buzzed. Mom's face lit up my screen. Answer it, Serena whispered. But put it on speaker. I took a deep breath and clicked accept. Hi, Mom. Viviana. Mi amor, thank God you answered. Your father and I are in a terrible situation. Let me guess. I cut in, my voice steady. You need money. Don't be cruel, mija. The property taxes are due in December. It's April. A pause, then, how dare you take that tone with me after everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me? The laugh that escaped me didn't sound like my own. Or everything I've done for Zach? Dead silence on the other end. Then, what are you talking about? The Tesla, Mom, the condo, the Rolex, the vacations. Did you think I wouldn't figure it out? You have a good job. Her voice turned shrill. You owe us. We raised you, educated you. And I paid you back 10 times over, every month for 5 years. But it wasn't enough, was it? You needed me to keep paying while you funded Zach's Instagram lifestyle. You ungrateful little. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but it felt good. Clean. Serena whistled low. That was intense. You okay? Before I could answer, my email pinged. A notification from my bank about a new account statement. Weird, I hadn't opened any new accounts. Hold on, I muttered, clicking the link. This can't be right. What? There's a loan account in my name. $30,000 opened 6 months ago. I scrolled through the details, my stomach dropping. I never authorized this. Serena grabbed her own laptop. Give me your social security number. Why? Because I work in cybersecurity, and we're going to run a credit check right now. 20 minutes later, we stared at the results in horror. 3 credit cards, 2 personal loans, a car lease, all in my name, all opened within the last year. They didn't just lie to you, Serena said quietly. They committed fraud, identity theft. This is criminal. My phone was exploding with texts from Mom. Answer your phone. You're breaking my heart. After everything we've sacrificed, your father is crying. The last one made me laugh, a harsh, broken sound. Dad's crying? Funny how he cries on command whenever they need money. Serena touched my arm. Vivi, this is serious. They could destroy your credit, your career. She was right. I worked in finance. My credit score and reputation were everything. If anyone at my firm found out about these fraudulent accounts, I need to document everything, I said, opening a new folder on my laptop. Every transfer, every text, every loan, every lie. And then what? I thought about Mom's laughing voice through the kitchen window, about 5 years of ramen dinners and canceled plans, about the look on Zach's face in his Tesla photo, not just happy, but smug. Then I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what they did. I named the folder File 3762, the number from my birth certificate. They used my identity for their games. Now I'm taking it back. Serena was already typing on her phone. My ex Victor works for the Financial Times now. He specializes in fraud exposés. She looked up, eyes gleaming. Want me to make a call? I stared at the growing file of evidence on my screen, at Mom's manipulative texts, at the fraudulent loans that could ruin me. 5 years of being the dutiful daughter, the reliable ATM, the obedient fool. Make the call, I said. It's time everyone saw the truth. Victor looked exactly like the kind of journalist who'd take down a family fraud scheme. Rumpled shirt, dark circles under his eyes, and a coffee cup that probably hadn't been washed in days. He spread my documents across his desk, whistling softly. This is comprehensive, he said, flipping through file 3762. Most people who get scammed by family keep messy records, but you've got everything cataloged by date, amount, and type of manipulation, even screenshots of the guilt trip texts. I'm a financial analyst, I replied. Documentation is what I do. He held up a printed Instagram post, Zach lounging on a beach in Bali. This vacation, posted the same week your mom said your dad needed emergency dental work. $7,000 of emergency dental work, I confirmed. Funny how dad's teeth needed fixing exactly when Zach wanted to go island hopping. Serena, who'd been quiet until now, leaned forward. Show him the loan documents, Vivi. Victor's eyebrows shot up as I handed him the credit report. Holy shit, they didn't just manipulate you for cash, they straight up stole your identity. My mother has all my information, social security number, birth certificate, everything. I trusted her. Trust is how they get you. He tapped the papers thoughtfully. But this story, it's not just about family betrayal. It's about financial abuse, identity theft, generational exploitation. The immigrant daughter success story turned nightmare. My throat tightened. Will you publish it? Anonymous source, of course, he said. But yeah, this needs to be told. People need to know how easily family can destroy you financially. My phone buzzed. Another text from Mom. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof because of your accusations. If anything happens to him, it's your fault. I showed it to Victor, who took a photo. More evidence of emotional manipulation. They're making it easy for us. Speaking of evidence, Serena cut in. Show him what you found last night. I pulled out the property records. They sold a piece of land in my name, property I never owned, never signed for. The signatures are forged. Victor's eyes widened. That's federal fraud territory. Have you contacted the FBI? Not yet. I wanted to get the story out first. Once it's public, they can't sweep it under the rug. Smart. He started typing on his laptop. I'll have the first draft ready in 2 days. But Viviana. He looked up seriously. This will blow up. Your family will know it's you. Are you ready for that? Before I could answer, my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Viviana, this is Vanessa from HR. My stomach dropped. Could you come to my office? There's something we need to discuss about your tax forms. I ended the call, hands shaking. My company's HR wants to see me, something about taxes. They must have found the fraudulent accounts, Serena said quietly. Victor was already gathering the documents. Go, deal with work, I'll start writing. But Viviana? He handed me his card. The minute they threaten you, legally, emotionally, whatever, you call me. This story just got bigger. An hour later, I sat across from Vanessa Dixon, watching her frown at her computer screen. These discrepancies. She began carefully. Multiple loans opened in quick succession, credit cards with unusual spending patterns, and tax documents that don't match our records. I can explain. Please do. Because right now it looks like either fraud or money laundering. I took a deep breath and pulled out my copy of File 3762. My family stole my identity. I have the proof, and a journalist is about to break the story. Her expression shifted from suspicion to shock as she read, Oh my God, Viviana, I'm so sorry. Will I lose my job? No. She closed the file firmly. You're the victim here, but you need legal protection. I have a friend who specializes in identity theft cases, pro bono work for financial abuse victims. I can't afford. Pro bono means free. She was already dialing. Hello, Maria. I have a case you need to see. Family identity theft, looking at around 100,000 in damages. As Vanessa talked, my phone lit up with a text from Victor. Story draft done. It's strong. Ready when you are. Another text popped up from Mom. We're coming to New York tomorrow. This disrespect ends now. I showed both messages to Vanessa, who covered the phone receiver. Don't meet them. Not without a lawyer present. This isn't just about money anymore. They're trying to control the narrative. I thought about all the times they'd controlled my narrative, my money, my life. Tell Victor to publish it, I said, my voice steady. Tomorrow morning, before they get here. It's time everyone saw who they really are. Vanessa nodded, a fierce look in her eyes. Maria, how fast can you file an emergency protection order? The wheels were in motion. By this time tomorrow, my family's perfect facade would shatter, and for once I wasn't worried about picking up the pieces. The article went live at 6 a.m. By 7, my phone was a war zone of notifications. By 8, when I walked into my parents' hotel lobby, the family fraud was trending on Twitter. Miss? The receptionist looked uncertain. Those people you mentioned? They're in the restaurant. I nodded, straightening my blazer. Maria, my lawyer, touched my arm. Remember, don't admit to the article. Don't sign anything. Don't let them isolate you. They were easy to spot. Mom was gesturing wildly, Dad stared into his coffee, and Zach scrolled through his phone with a scowl. Perfect little family coming apart at the seams. Viviana! Mom stood up, arms outstretched. Mi amor! Sit down, I said quietly. This isn't a reunion. How dare you take that tone? Mrs. Gonzalez, Maria cut in smoothly. I'm Maria Rivera, your daughter's attorney. Shall we discuss the unauthorized loans taken in her name? Mom's face went from loving to livid in seconds. Attorney? You brought a lawyer to a family breakfast? Family? I laughed. Is that what you call people you steal from? Dad finally looked up. Mija, please, we can explain everything. Explain what? The forged signatures, the fake medical emergencies, or how about the property you sold in my name? Zach slammed his phone down. Have you seen what's happening online? Some journalist wrote about our family. We're being destroyed on social media. That's your concern? I pulled out the loan documents. I could go to jail because of the fraud you committed, and you're worried about your Instagram comments? Fraud? Mom's voice rose. We're your parents. Everything we did was for this family. You mean for him? I pointed at Zach. The Tesla, the condo, the vacations, all funded by my sacrifices and stolen identity. Your brother needed. I needed dental surgery. I needed an apartment without roaches. I needed to not eat ramen for 5 years while you funded his lifestyle. The restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners were staring. Lower your voice, Dad whispered. People are watching. Good. I met his eyes. Let them watch. Let them see exactly what you did. He crumpled, suddenly looking old. We we did sell that property. We thought you wouldn't notice. Your brother needed the down payment for his condo and what? You decided theft was easier than telling him no? It wasn't theft, Mom hissed. We're family. Everything belongs to all of us. Maria pulled out her tablet. Actually, Mrs. Gonzalez, identity theft within families is still a federal crime. Would you like to see the statutes? We don't need to see anything. Mom stood up, trembling. Viviana, if you don't drop this ridiculous crusade right now, you are no longer our daughter. Think carefully about your next move. I stood too, feeling strangely calm. My next move? Check your email. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit would like to speak with you about the forged property documents. They're very interested in family fraud cases. You wouldn't, Zach whispered. I already did, this morning. I picked up my bag. Oh, and Zach? Those loans you took out in my name? They're being investigated too. Hope the Tesla was worth it. You evil, ungrateful. Mom started forward, but Maria stepped between us. Mrs. Gonzalez, that's enough. Any further harassment will be added to the restraining order application. Restraining order? Dad's voice cracked. Viviana, please, we're your parents. We only wanted to help Zach have a better future. I finished. I heard you the first 100 times, but what about my future? The one you destroyed? My phone buzzed. Vanessa from HR. Board meeting emergency. They saw the article. Need you here ASAP to discuss impact on company reputation. I have to go, I said, gathering my things. My career, the one that funded your schemes, needs saving. If you walk away now, Mom called after me, don't ever come back. I turned at the restaurant entrance. They looked small suddenly. Mom with her self-righteous anger, Dad with his convenient weakness, Zach with his entitled scowl. 5 years of power over me, broken by truth. Don't worry, I said. I won't. Outside, Maria touched my shoulder. You okay? I watched through the window as Mom collapsed into dramatic sobs, as Dad patted her hand, as Zach returned to his phone, probably checking his crumbling social media empire. No, I answered honestly, but I will be. My phone buzzed again, a text from Victor. Stories exploding, national outlets picking it up. You started a conversation about financial abuse in families. People are coming forward with their own stories. I took one last look at my family, still playing their roles in their private drama, but I didn't have a part in that play anymore. I had a board meeting to attend, a reputation to defend, and a future to reclaim. Let's go, I told Maria. I have other battles to fight now. The article has over 2 million views, Victor said, scrolling through analytics on his laptop. Reddit, TikTok, Twitter, it's everywhere. A family fraud and toxic parents are still trending. We sat in Serena's living room, surrounded by takeout containers and open laptops. 3 days had passed since the confrontation at the hotel. Look at these comments, Serena pointed to her screen. My parents did the same thing with my student loans. My sister stole my identity and mom covered it up. You've started a movement, Vivi. My phone pinged with another notification. Great, Mom's trying to tell her side of the story on Facebook. Victor leaned over to read. My ungrateful daughter has twisted our love into something ugly. Everything we did was for family. Now she's destroyed her brother's career and broken her mother's heart. Classic Darvo, Maria said from the couch. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Your mother's playing straight from the manipulator's handbook. Another notification popped up. Zach had posted a video. Oh, this should be good, Serena muttered, hitting play. My brother's tear streaked face filled the screen. Guys, I know you've all seen that article, but please hear me out. I never knew where the money came from. My parents said they had savings. Liar, I whispered. He literally thanked Mom for getting the money from me. And now I might lose everything, my job, my car, my home, all because my sister decided to get revenge. That's not revenge, Victor interrupted. That's consequences. My phone rang. Vanessa from HR. The board made their decision, she said when I answered. They're keeping you on. Your documentation and transparency saved your position. But, they want you to make a public statement. Distance the company from the scandal. I put her on speaker. What kind of statement? Professional, firm, no emotional language. Focus on being a victim of identity theft who took legal action. Don't mention family dynamics. Maria nodded approvingly. That's smart. Keep it about the financial crimes, not the family drama. After hanging up, I checked my email. 20 new messages from relatives. How could you do this to your parents? Family matters should stay private. Your poor brother's reputation is ruined. They're all taking their side, I said, closing the laptop. Every single one. Because you broke the cardinal rule, Serena replied. Never expose family secrets. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. If you don't retract this story and apologize publicly, we'll sue you for defamation. Everything we did was legal. We're your parents. We had authority. Maria grabbed my phone and took a screenshot. Perfect. More evidence of attempting to cover up fraud. Keep these coming, Mrs. Gonzalez. Victor's phone buzzed. Oh, this is interesting. Your brother's company just released a statement. They're parting ways due to recent revelations about financial impropriety. Translation: they fired him for being a fraud. Serena smirked. Another notification, a message from Dad. Your mother's in the hospital. Stress attack. Are you happy now? Before I could respond, Maria took my phone. Don't engage. They're trying to provoke an emotional response they can use against you. Look at this, Victor said suddenly, turning his laptop. A new article had popped up. Financial abuse in families, a hidden epidemic. The piece cited my story and included interviews with experts on familial identity theft. The comments section was flooding with similar stories. You're not alone, Serena said softly. You just said what everyone else was afraid to say. My phone pinged again, a video message from Mom. Against Maria's advice, I played it. Mom's face appeared, tears streaming. How could you do this? After everything we sacrificed? Your father can't sleep. Zach lost his job. Our neighbors won't talk to us. The shame you've brought on this family. Notice how it's all about their suffering, Maria observed. Not a word about what they did to you. The comments on her Facebook are brutal, Serena reported. Toxic mother gets exposed. Financial abuser plays victim. They're not buying her act. Victor's phone buzzed. CNN wants to interview you. Anonymous, of course, voice distorted, identity protected. I stared at Mom's paused video, her tearful face frozen mid-manipulation. For years, those tears had controlled me, guilted me, emptied my bank account. Tell CNN yes, I said, but not anonymous. Not anymore. Are you sure? Maria asked. Once you show your face, there's no going back. Another text from mom. If you continue this vendetta, you'll regret it. Family is forever. I looked at the message, then at the supportive faces around me, my chosen family, the ones who stood by me when blood family became bloodsuckers. Family is forever? I clicked reply. Watch me end forever in one interview. The CNN studio lights felt hot on my face as the anchor Diana leaned forward with practiced sympathy. So, Viviana, what made you finally decide to come forward? I gripped the water glass they'd given me. Finding out my father's medical emergency was actually my brother's Tesla payment. 5 years of lies crashed down in one moment. And the loans? The identity theft? Over $90,000. I pulled out my phone, showing the banking app. That's not counting the property they sold in my name or the credit cards. Your parents claim they had authority as family. They didn't, Maria cut in from beside me. Parental authority doesn't extend to forging signatures or committing federal fraud. The interview aired live. Somewhere, my family was watching their carefully constructed lies unravel on national television. My phone vibrated. Dad calling. I declined it. Your brother recently posted a video claiming innocence. Diana continued. How do you respond? I have texts proving he knew. I handed over screenshots. Here's him thanking our mother for convincing Vivi to help with the down payment. That was a month I canceled my dental work to send money home. The producer signaled for a close-up of the texts. Zach's smug words filled the screen. LOL, can't believe she fell for the roof repair story again. Diana's expression hardened. This seems less like family helping family and more like systematic exploitation. That's exactly what it was. I straightened in my chair. They used my love as a weapon against me? The studio door burst open. Mom stormed in, Dad trailing behind her. Cut the cameras! She screamed. This is family business! Security moved forward, but Diana held up a hand. Mrs. Gonzalez, you're interrupting a live broadcast. I'm stopping my daughter from destroying our family. Mom turned to me, tears already flowing. Mija, please, your father's heart is fine, I finished. Just like it was fine when you said he needed surgery, but bought Zach a Rolex instead. The cameras swiveled between us, millions watching, no place to hide. Everything we did was for family, she sobbed. No. I stood up. Everything you did was for Zach. I was just the ATM. You ungrateful Mrs. Gonzalez, Maria interrupted. Every word you say is being recorded. Would you like to explain the forged property documents on live television? Mom's face changed. The tears vanished. You think you've won? We'll sue you for every penny. We'll tell everyone what an awful daughter you are. You'll what? I pulled out more papers. Contest the fraud charges? The FBI has these too. Bank records, forged signatures, fake loan applications. Want to explain those to the viewers? Dad stepped forward. Viviana, please. We can fix this privately. Like you fixed it when I confronted you at the hotel? Or when Mom threatened to sue me? Or when Zach tried to play victim on social media? Diana's voice cut through. Mr. Gonzalez, did you knowingly participate in defrauding your daughter? He stammered. I. We. It wasn't fraud. We're family. Family doesn't steal identity, I said quietly. Family doesn't exploit love for profit. Family doesn't destroy someone's financial future for another child's luxury cars. Security finally reached them. Mom struggled as they led her out, screaming, After everything we did for you! What did you do for me? I called after her. Besides, steal my money, ruin my credit, and lie to my face for 5 years? The studio fell silent. Dad looked at me one last time before following Mom out. Well, Diana said after a moment, that was unexpected. My phone buzzed with a text from Zach. You've ruined everything. Hope you're happy. I showed it to the camera. See? Still no acknowledgement. No apology. Just blame. What happens now? Diana asked. Maria answered. The FBI investigation continues. Civil suits for damages, and a restraining order hearing next week. And personally? Diana turned to me. I thought about Mom's tears, Dad's weakness, Zach's entitlement, about 5 years of sacrifice for people who saw love as a transaction. I'm done, I said simply. Done being guilty, done being manipulated, done being the family ATM. They can find another victim. Any message for viewers in similar situations? I looked directly into the camera, thinking of all the comments, all the people sharing their own stories of family financial abuse. Check your credit report, save your evidence, and remember real family doesn't steal from you, real family doesn't exploit you, and real family certainly doesn't destroy your future to fund someone else's luxury lifestyle. As we wrapped up, my phone lit up with messages of support, but one caught my eye from Vanessa at HR. Board watched the interview. They're impressed with your professionalism. London office transfer approved if you want it. Fresh start. I smiled. Maybe it was time for a new chapter, one where family meant chosen family and love didn't come with a price tag. The courthouse hallway buzzed with tension. My parents sat on one bench, Zach on another, all avoiding eye contact. Maria reviewed documents beside me while Serena squeezed my hand. Civil court was the right choice, Maria murmured. Faster than criminal proceedings, and the burden of proof is lower. They're still claiming parental authority? I asked. Your mother is. Your father. She nodded toward Dad, who looked like he'd aged a decade. He's willing to testify about the fraud. Mom's head snapped up. Antonio, don't you dare! A bailiff appeared. All parties in the Gonzalez financial fraud case, please enter. The courtroom felt smaller than I'd imagined. Judge Patterson, a stern faced woman in her 60s, studied the paperwork. Quite the media circus you've created, she noted. Let's see if the evidence matches the headlines. Maria stepped forward. Your Honor, we have documented proof of systematic financial abuse spanning 5 years, bank records, forged documents, text messages showing intent to deceive. Mom's lawyer interrupted. Your Honor, this is a family matter that's been grossly mischaracterized. Parents have certain rights. Parents have rights, Judge Patterson cut in. Identity theft isn't one of them. Continue, counselor. I took the stand first. The familiar documents projected onto a screen, bank transfers, loan applications, property deeds. Walk us through March 15th, Maria said. My mother called crying about Dad's emergency dental surgery. I transferred $7,000. I pointed to the bank statement. 3 days later, my brother posted photos from his Bali vacation. Objection! Mom's lawyer called. Instagram posts aren't evidence. The timestamps and bank records align perfectly, Maria countered, as do Mr. Gonzalez's dental records showing no procedures that month. Judge Patterson leaned forward. Mr. Gonzalez, did you receive dental treatment in March? Dad stood slowly. No, Your Honor. The money, it went to Zach's vacation. Antonio, Mom shrieked. How dare you? I'm tired of lying, Dad said quietly. Tired of watching our daughter suffer while we spoiled our son. Zach jumped up. Dad, shut up. You're ruining everything. Order! Judge Patterson banged her gavel. Mr. Gonzalez, please continue. Dad's testimony spilled out. The fake medical emergencies, the forged signatures, the property sale. With each revelation, Mom's face grew darker. And the loans? The judge pressed. Julia, Your Honor, my wife handled those. She had Viviana's social security card, her birth certificate, which were stolen from my apartment, I added, during a surprise visit last year. Maria presented the credit reports. Multiple loans and credit cards, all opened without my client's knowledge or consent, total damages exceeding $120,000. That money was for family, Mom burst out. Viviana had a good job. She owed us. Judge Patterson's eyes narrowed. Mrs. Gonzalez, are you admitting to knowingly committing identity theft? Mom's lawyer tried to intervene, but she was on a roll. We raised her. We sacrificed everything. She had money while her brother struggled. Her brother? The judge interrupted, who posted about his new Tesla the same week you claimed to need money for life-saving medication? Zach slumped in his seat as his social media posts appeared on screen. The car, the condo, the vacations, all timestamped to match my emergency transfers. Given the overwhelming evidence, Judge Patterson declared, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff. All fraudulent loans are to be transferred to the defendant's names, damages of $120,000 to be paid in restitution. She turned to my parents. Additionally, I'm issuing a restraining order. No contact, no social media harassment, no financial access. And Mr. Zachary Gonzalez? My brother looked up. The FBI has questions about your role in this fraud. I suggest you get a good lawyer. Mom collapsed in theatrical sobs. Dad just nodded, looking relieved it was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Mom pushed through them, screaming about appeals and ungrateful children. Zach skulked away, already on his phone, probably calling his influencer friends for help. Dad approached me alone. Mija, I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but you're right. I cut him off. It's not enough. 5 years, Dad. You watched me struggle for 5 years and said nothing. I was weak, he whispered, but testifying today, it was the first strong thing I've done in years. Good for you. I turned away. But I'm done being strong for all of you. Serena appeared with my coat. Ready? The car's waiting. Car? Dad asked. I'm taking the London transfer, I told him. New city, new start, no toxic family drama. His face crumpled. Will we ever see you again? I thought about the years of lies, the stolen money, the betrayal masked as love. That depends on you, all of you, but for now, I need distance that can't be measured in dollars. The reporters surged forward as we left, but I had nothing left to say. The court had spoken, the truth had won, and somewhere across the ocean a new life waited, one where family meant more than an ATM code. Welcome to London, Ms. Financial Analyst. Serena's face beamed from my laptop screen during our weekly video chat. How's the new flat? I panned my camera around the sunny Notting Hill apartment. Small but perfect, and completely paid for by my own money. Any word from the family? Mom's still posting dramatic Facebook updates about her ungrateful daughter. I scrolled through my phone. Dad sends occasional emails, mostly apologies and updates about therapy. Zach's influencer career tanked after the fraud charges. Speaking of charges, Serena leaned closer to her camera. Did you see the support group you inspired? Children of Financial Abuse has over 20,000 members now. A notification popped up on my screen, an email from Victor. Story follow-up getting massive response. Publishers interested in a book deal. Call me. A book? Serena squealed. Girl, you have to do it. Maybe. I sipped my tea. Proper English breakfast tea now, not the cheap bags I used to ration. But first, look at this. I held up a letter from my bank. My credit score had finally recovered, climbing back to where it belonged after the fraud alerts were cleared. You did it, Serena said softly. You really did it. My doorbell rang. Hold on, that's my delivery. I opened the door to find a courier with a thick envelope. Legal documents from Maria. The final restitution payment had cleared. Mom and Dad had sold their house to cover the court-ordered damages. Back at my laptop, I showed Serena the papers. They actually paid. I never thought they would. What about the restraining order? Still in place. Though Dad's therapist reached out, asking if I'd consider family counseling. Will you? I looked around my apartment, at the art I'd bought because I wanted it, the fresh flowers I could now afford, the savings account that was finally growing. Not yet, maybe not ever. I'm learning that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Board meeting tomorrow? Your proposal for a financial literacy program targeting family fraud? They love it. You're presenting at 9. Look at you, Serena grinned, turning pain into purpose. Speaking of purpose, I opened my laptop's camera roll. Remember that dream board I made 5 years ago? The one I had to abandon because of all the family emergencies? The old photo showed a collage, travel plans, career goals, a down payment fund for my own home, all sacrificed for Zach's luxuries. Time to make a new one? Already did. I held up my new board. Similar dreams, but with one key difference. Every goal was for me. My email pinged, a message from a woman named Rebecca. Your story saved my life. I was sending money to my parents while my sister lived in luxury. After seeing your CNN interview, I checked my credit. Found 3 unauthorized loans. Thank you for showing me I wasn't alone. These messages never stop coming, I told Serena. Every day, someone new discovers their family's financial abuse. Because you spoke up. You showed them the way out. My banking app notification flashed. Automatic savings transfer complete. No guilt, no emergency calls, no manipulation. Just my money, building my future. Remember what Mom used to say? I asked Serena. Family is forever? Hard to forget. She screamed it in court. Well, she was right. Family is forever. But we get to choose which forever we want. I opened my calendar, filled with plans that were all mine: therapy sessions, investment meetings, weekend trips to Paris. No more putting my life on hold for others' greed. The funny thing is, I continued, I'm actually grateful now. Not for the fraud or theft, but for the wake up call. I needed to learn that love shouldn't cost your future. Serena wiped her eyes. Damn, write that down for your book. Another email arrived from Dad. I understand if you never forgive us, but I want you to know I'm proud of you, not despite what you did, but because of it. You showed more strength than I ever did. I marked it read, but didn't reply. Some bridges need time before rebuilding, if they're rebuilt at all. Hey, Serena, I said, watching London's sunset through my window. Remember when I thought I owed them because I was surviving? Well, they drained your survival dry? Yeah, I finally figured it out. I survived because I stopped owing anyone, except myself. My phone lit up with another message from a stranger sharing their story of family financial abuse. Another person finding their voice, their strength, their way out. I opened my laptop to reply, thinking how strange it was that my family's betrayal had led to this: a community of survivors, a purpose born from pain, and a freedom that felt like finally coming home to myself. They wanted an ATM daughter. They got a warrior instead, and that was a trade I'd make any day.
I stood in the living room, watching James walk out with his fancy suitcase. His young girlfriend, Sophia, followed closely behind him. The strong scent of her perfume filled the air, mixing with the dinner I had cooked just hours before. The same dinner where my world fell apart. "You're pathetic, Anna," James said coldly, turning back one last time. "No one will believe your crazy accusations. I made sure of that." He tapped his jacket pocket, where his phone held fake messages and proof to make me look unstable. I didn't say a word. After 15 years of marriage, he expected me to cry or beg. But I just sipped my tea, looking at him calmly. "Nothing to say," he mocked. "No more wild ideas about what I've been doing with our money." Sophie giggled and grabbed his arm. "James, baby, let's go. She's not worth it." I set my teacup down. "You're right, James. I have nothing more to say." His face turned red. He hated when I didn't react. He wanted me to be emotional so he could call me crazy. "Good," he snapped. "My lawyer will contact you. Don't expect much. I've covered my tracks." They got into his expensive car and drove away. I waited until the taillights disappeared, then walked straight to his home office. The room smelled like his cologne. His diplomas hung on the wall, showing off his success as a neurosurgeon. I ignored them and went to his desk. The bottom drawer had a hidden compartment. James thought I didn't know about it, but I did. That's where he kept his secret journal. He wrote down everything. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every way he manipulated me. He was so confident that he thought no one would ever catch him. I pulled out the leather-bound book and flipped through the pages. One entry stood out. "Anna's getting suspicious. Told her she's been forgetful. Maybe she needs a doctor." She believed me. So easy to make her doubt herself. I had already seen these pages before. I had copied every single one and sent them to my lawyer. While James was busy making me look crazy, I was quietly collecting proof. Another entry caught my eye. "Sophia is perfect for my plan. She thinks I'll build a life with her after I leave Anna. Poor girl has no clue she's just a pawn. Once I get the hospital board position, I'll need someone better for my image." I closed the journal. James had spent years gaslighting me, convincing me I was wrong about his lies, making me doubt what I saw. But he had made one big mistake. He underestimated me. My phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer, Margaret. "Everything is ready." He accessed the accounts just like we predicted. "Are you ready to proceed?" I looked around the office one last time. Soon, James would try to take money from our joint accounts, only to find them frozen. By morning, the hospital board would see proof of how he stole funds, and Sophia, she would realize James had been lying to her too. "Yes," I texted back. "It's time." I opened the safe behind his expensive painting. Last month, James had changed the lock code, thinking I wouldn't notice. But I had secretly recorded him entering the numbers. Inside the safe were more documents, proof of stolen money, fake hospital records, and secret offshore accounts. For years, James had tried to break me, but every lie only made me stronger. Now, I finally had the truth, and I was going to use it. Another text came in, this time from Detective Torres. Got your evidence. Very thorough. Ready when you are. I smiled. James thought no one would believe me. He was about to find out how wrong he was. I heard cars pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Margaret step out of her car, followed by Detective Torres. It was time to show the world who James really was. I gathered the journal and the files, ready to hand him over. James thought he was walking away free, but he had actually left me with everything I needed to take him down. The doorbell rang. It was time to finish this. The next morning, I sat in Margaret's office, watching James's carefully constructed world crumble through a series of increasingly frantic text messages on my phone. What did you do? The accounts are frozen. Anna, fix this now. You have no idea what you're doing. Each message grew more desperate than the last. I set my phone aside as Margaret spread the journal's contents across her desk, her experienced eyes scanning each damning page. This is extraordinary, she said, adjusting her glasses. Not only did he document the hospital fraud, but he also detailed every step of his plan to discredit you. Most people trying to commit fraud don't create such a thorough record of their crimes. I smiled faintly. James always thought he was the smartest person in the room. He wrote everything down because he never believed anyone would find it, let alone understand the implications. Well, his arrogance is our advantage, Margaret replied, holding up a particularly detailed entry. Look at this. He even recorded the exact amounts he transferred to his offshore accounts. Makes our job much easier. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Sophia. James is freaking out. What's going on? He says you're trying to ruin him. I ignored her message. She'd learn the truth soon enough. Detective Torres entered the office, carrying a thick file. Mrs. Parker, we've verified the offshore account numbers from the journal. Every transaction matches the evidence we've gathered. Your husband wasn't just embezzling from your joint accounts, he was stealing from the hospital's research fund. I thought about all the times James had come home late, claiming he was working on crucial research. How many of those nights had he actually spent falsifying records and moving money? What happens next? I asked, my voice steady. The hospital board is reviewing the evidence now, Detective Torres replied. Given the amount of money involved and the detailed nature of your husband's records, they're taking this very seriously. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a news alert, prominent neurosurgeon under investigation for financial fraud. The story was already breaking. Margaret handed me a cup of coffee. Are you ready for phase 2? Once we file these documents with the court, there's no going back. I took a sip, remembering the night 6 months ago when I first discovered the journal. I'd been looking for a missing earring in his office when I found it, hidden away in that false drawer. Reading those pages had been like having every suspicion, every doubt I pushed aside confirmed in black and white. I'm ready, I said firmly. File everything. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Margaret's team worked efficiently, submitting document after document to the courts. Each piece of evidence was another nail in the coffin of James' reputation. Around noon, my phone rang. James's mother, Eleanor. Anna dear, her usually imperious voice trembled slightly. Please tell me these horrible stories aren't true. The hospital called James in for an emergency board meeting, and now I'm seeing all these dreadful news reports. Have you asked James about it? I kept my tone neutral. Eleanor had always favored her son, dismissing any suggestion that he might be less than perfect. He's not answering his phone, she admitted. And that girl he's been seeing, Sophia, she's making quite a scene at the hospital, demanding to know what's happening. I almost felt sorry for Sophia, almost. Everything will become clear soon, Eleanor, I said quietly. Just prepare yourself. As I ended the call, Detective Torres returned with an update. Your husband's trying to access the offshore accounts. He's getting desperate. And Sophia? Left the hospital in tears after security escorted her out. Apparently, she was threatening to expose some of his secrets unless he paid her what he promised. I nodded, unsurprised. Sophia had always struck me as more calculating than the besotted girlfriend she pretended to be. The afternoon brought more developments. The hospital board had suspended James pending investigation. His carefully cultivated reputation was unraveling faster than he could spin new lies. Finally, around 4 o'clock, he appeared at Margaret's office, barging in unannounced. He'd lost his usual polished appearance, his shirt was wrinkled, his hair disheveled. "You vindictive witch," he snarled when he saw me. "What have you done?" I met his gaze calmly. "I haven't done anything, James. You did this to yourself." "Those journals were private," he shouted. "You had no right." "To what?" I interrupted. "To expose your fraud? To prove I wasn't crazy or paranoid? To show everyone exactly who you really are." Margaret stepped forward. "Mr. Parker, I suggest you leave now and direct all future communication through your lawyer." James's face contorted with rage. "This isn't over, Anna. No one will believe." "They already do," I cut in, sliding a copy of the day's news coverage across the table. "Your own words, James. Every lie, every manipulation, every crime, all in your own handwriting." He stared at the papers, the color draining from his face as he finally realized the extent of his exposure. His hands shook as he picked up one of the articles. "You'll regret this," he threatened, but his voice had lost its power. I stood up, gathering my belongings. "No, James. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner." As security escorted him out, I watched through the window as his world continued to collapse. His phone rang incessantly, probably the hospital board. His lawyers, maybe even Sophia, all demanding explanations he couldn't give. Detective Torres appeared at my side. "The hospital's pressing charges. With the evidence from the journal and the financial records, he's looking at serious time." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. The man I'd married, the life I thought we had, it had all been a carefully constructed lie. But now finally, the truth was coming out. "You did the right thing," Margaret assured me, gathering the documents into a secure file. Phase 2 was complete. "Are you ready for what comes next?" I took a deep breath. Yes. It's time everyone knew the whole story. The media storm hit harder than I'd expected. By the next morning, James's fall from grace was the leading story in every local paper. Respected surgeon's double life exposed screamed one headline. Hospital fraud scheme uncovered through personal journal declared another. I sat in my kitchen, watching the morning news coverage while Detective Torres updated me on the latest developments. "We've frozen all the accounts we could trace," he said, reviewing his notes. "But there's still money missing. Around $2 million that we can't locate." I sipped my coffee, remembering a particular journal entry from 3 years ago. "Check his mother's beach house in Florida." The entry from March 2021 mentioned a safe behind the master bedroom's wood paneling. Detective Torres raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You really did read everything carefully, didn't you? When you spend years being told you're paranoid, you learn to pay attention to details." My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "We need to talk. There are things you should know." Before I could respond, another message appeared, this time from James. "Meet me. 1 hour. The cafe where we first met. Or I release the videos." I showed the messages to Detective Torres, who immediately started typing on his phone. "We'll have plainclothes officers in place. But are you sure you want to do this?" I nodded. "He's bluffing about the videos. There's an entry in the journal about them. They're fake, staged with Sophia to make me look unstable. He was saving them as insurance." "We'll still need to proceed carefully," he warned. An hour later, I walked into the Morning Roast Cafe. James sat at our old table, looking disheveled but still maintaining an air of arrogance. Sophia sat nervously beside him, avoiding my eyes. "Anna," he attempted his old, charming smile. "Let's be reasonable about this." I sat down across from them, acutely aware of the plainclothes officers scattered throughout the cafe. "I'm listening." "This can all go away," he leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I have videos that show you having mental breakdowns, being violent. If these get out, no one will believe anything you say. Your credibility will be destroyed." Sophia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "You mean the videos you staged?" I asked calmly. "The ones you detailed in your journal? Including the dates they were filmed, who helped you create them, and how much you paid everyone to participate?" James's smile faltered. Sophia's head snapped up. "You wrote about those?" she asked him, her voice sharp. "He wrote about everything," I replied, pulling out copies of specific journal entries, including his plans to discard you once you'd served your purpose. Sophie grabbed the papers, her hands trembling as she read. Her face paled. You said I was special, she whispered to James. You said once the divorce was final. He also wrote about the other women. I added quietly, you weren't the first, and you wouldn't have been the last. James slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Those journals were private. You had no right. Actually, Detective Torres appeared beside our table. Those journals are now evidence in a criminal investigation, along with the videos you just attempted to use for blackmail. I watched as the last traces of color drained from James's face. Sophia stood up abruptly, grabbing her designer bag. I don't want any part of this, she announced. And James, check your phone. I just sent some interesting screenshots to the detective here. Turns out I can keep records too. She stormed out, leaving James staring after her in shock. It's over, I said softly. The board has the evidence of your embezzlement. The police have proof of your fraud. Everyone knows the truth now. You've ruined everything, he hissed. No, James, you did that yourself. Every time you wrote in that journal, every time you convinced yourself you were too clever to get caught, you were building the case against yourself. Detective Torres placed a hand on James's shoulder. Mr. Parker, we need you to come with us. We have some questions about the money hidden in your mother's beach house. As they led James away, I remained at the table, looking around the cafe where our story had begun 15 years ago. Back then, I thought I found someone who valued and respected me. Instead, I married a man who spent years trying to make me doubt my own sanity. My phone buzzed with a message from Margaret. Hospital board meeting tomorrow. They want you to testify. I typed a quick reply. I'll be there. Tomorrow I would tell my story, not as the unstable woman James had tried to paint me as, but as someone who had found the strength to expose the truth. And I had his own words to back me up, every step of the way. The journal that was meant to document his triumph had become the instrument of his downfall, and there was a certain poetry in that. The hospital board meeting was held in a stark conference room, its walls lined with awards and accolades, many of them bearing James's name. As I prepared to testify, I watched them take down his framed achievements one by one. Mrs. Parker, the board chairman began, we've reviewed the evidence you provided, but we'd like to hear from you directly about what you discovered. I opened the journal to the first flagged page. It started 3 years ago. James began documenting discrepancies in the research fund accounts. At first, small amounts, 10,000 here, 20,000 there. But it grew. The board members listened intently as I walked them through James's detailed records of his fraud. Every transaction, every falsified research report, every manipulated budget, all meticulously documented in his own handwriting. The total amount, I concluded, comes to just over $4 million. Most of it has been recovered from various accounts, including the safe in his mother's beach house. The chairman removed his glasses, rubbing his temples. And the personal elements, the attempts to discredit you? I shared the entries where James had plotted to make me appear unstable, his strategies for gaslighting me, his plans for using Sophia to create evidence of my supposed mental instability. When I finished, the room was silent. Finally, the chairman spoke. Mrs. Parker, we owe you an apology. Many of us witnessed James' attempts to question your stability, and we did nothing. You weren't the only ones, I replied quietly. He was very convincing. After the meeting, I found Sophia waiting outside. She looked different, younger somehow, without her usual perfect makeup and designer clothes. I'm sorry, she said simply. I didn't know about any of it. I thought. She trailed off. You thought you were special. I finished for her. That's what he wanted you to believe. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I've told the police everything. About the staged videos, the promises he made, how he coached me to act around you. Thank you, I said. That will help their case. As I walked to my car, Margaret called with an update. James took a plea deal. 8 years, plus full restitution. His medical license is being revoked. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. And the divorce? Given the evidence of fraud and his criminal conviction, you'll get everything you're entitled to. He won't be able to touch your assets or contest the settlement. That evening, I returned to our house, my house now, and began packing up James's remaining belongings. In his office, I found more journals, older ones dating back to the beginning of our marriage. Reading them was like watching someone slowly transform into a monster page by page. The early entries showed ambition tinged with arrogance. Over time, that arrogance grew into something darker, more calculating. My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor, James's mother. I found more documents in the beach house safe. I'm giving everything to Detective Torres. I'm so sorry, Anna. I should have seen who he really was. I set the phone down and continued packing, coming across photos from happier times, our wedding, vacations, hospital galas. In each one, I could now see what I'd missed. The calculated look in James's eyes, the way he positioned himself to be the center of attention, how I seemed to fade into the background. But I wasn't that person anymore. 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated living room of my house. Gone were the pretentious artworks James had insisted on, replaced by pieces that brought me joy. His dark leather furniture had been exchanged for comfortable, bright pieces that made the space feel like home. Detective Torres had become a friend, stopping by occasionally to update me on the case's final details. The last of the money has been recovered, he told me during one visit. The hospital's research fund has been fully restored. And James, I asked, adapting poorly to prison life, from what I hear, keeps insisting everyone's conspiring against him. I thought about the journal that had started it all, now safely stored as evidence. He never understood that his biggest enemy was himself. Margaret called with one final piece of news. The divorce is official. You're free. Free, the word echoed in my mind as I looked around my home. Free from the gaslighting, the manipulation, the constant self-doubt. Free to be myself again. I'd started volunteering at a support group for victims of psychological abuse, sharing my story to help others recognize the signs I'd missed for so long. Some of the women there had similar stories of manipulation, of carefully documented lies, of the strength it took to break free. My phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. Testified against James today. Thought you should know, he still doesn't get it. Still thinks he's the victim. Thank you for showing me the truth. I smiled, remembering James's sneering words that night. No one will ever believe your stories. But they had believed, because in the end it wasn't just my word against his. It was his own words, his own detailed records of his crimes that had revealed the truth. I walked to my bedroom window, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. The journal that James had kept as a trophy of his cleverness had become the key to my freedom. Sometimes I realized the truth has a way of coming out, one page at a time. Time to write my own story, I whispered to myself and opened my laptop to begin. Marcus smirked as he threw his duffel bag into the trunk of his BMW. No marriage certificate, no property split, he said. You can't claim anything without proof. I stood there, keeping my face calm even though I was boiling inside. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 35, I was watching my husband of 8 years leave me for his 25-year-old girlfriend. A husband who had conveniently lost our marriage certificate 2 months ago during our home renovation. Don't worry about the house, Marcus added, checking his hair in a car mirror. You can stay here until I decide what to do with it. Consider it a gift. He even winked, like he was being generous. I crossed my arms, silently watching him. He expected me to cry, beg, or get angry. Instead, I said nothing. No reaction, he asked, sounding disappointed. Not going to fight for our marriage. I almost laughed. Fight for a man who was literally moving in with another woman. The same woman he had been secretly seeing for months. No, Marcus, I said calmly. Your decision is clear. He frowned, clearly surprised. He thought he was in control, that he was too smart to be caught. He believed that without a marriage certificate, I had no legal claim to anything. But what he didn't know was that I had been paying attention. The late nights, the locked phone, the work dinners that never showed up on his expense reports, I had seen it all. After all, I had worked in criminal investigations for years. This would be easier if you just accepted that things change, Marcus continued. Sophia understands me in ways you never could. I smiled slightly. Sophia, the young paralegal who somehow lived in a luxury apartment. The same woman who had been asking a lot of questions about our property at the office Christmas party. I'm sure she does, I replied. Something in my tone made Marcus pause. What do you mean by that? I shrugged. Just wishing you well. That's what divorcing couples do, right? He narrowed his eyes. We're not divorcing. No marriage certificate, no divorce. And even if you found a copy, everything's in my name. You have nothing. I thought about the call I made last week, about the documents stored in my office. Marcus thought he had covered his tracks. But he had underestimated me. You're right, I said softly. I guess I have nothing to lose. His confidence wavered for the first time. What are you planning? Planning? I echoed. Nothing at all. Just watching my husband leave for his girlfriend. He got into his car, trying to act like he wasn't nervous. Don't do anything stupid, Olivia. You can't win against me in court. I'm a lawyer. Oh, I remember, I said with a small smile. Say hi to Sophia for me. As he drove away, I pulled out my phone and called a number I knew by heart. Detective Parker's office answered a familiar voice. Hey, Jim, I said, watching Marcus disappear down the street. Remember that favor you owe me? I need to check some records. Jim chuckled. This about Marcus? Let's just say I need to verify some paperwork. About time, Jim said. Come by tomorrow, and Olivia, bring your laptop. You'll want to see this. I ended the call and looked up at the house Marcus thought he could take from me. He had always underestimated me. He forgot that before I was his wife, I was a forensic investigator, specializing in financial crimes. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. The next morning, I walked into Jim's office carrying my laptop and 8 years' worth of carefully documented evidence. The familiar smell of coffee and old case files brought back memories of my days working in this department. Still keeping that door hinged squeaky for dramatic effect, I asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. Jim grinned, pushing a cup of coffee toward me. Some things never change. Speaking of change, I pulled those records you asked about. He turned his monitor toward me. Your husband's been busy. I leaned forward, scanning the document on his screen. It was a digital copy of our marriage certificate filed with the county clerk's office 8 years ago. Next to it was a series of access logs showing repeated attempts to alter the digital records over the past 3 months. He tried to hack the county database. I couldn't help but laugh. Marcus always thought he was smarter than everyone else. Not just tried, Jim said, clicking through more logs. He paid someone to do it, left a pretty clear trail too. Amateur hour stuff. He paused, studying my face. You knew this was coming, didn't you? I opened my laptop, pulling up folders of meticulously organized files. Let's just say I learned a thing or two about documentation during our marriage. Each folder contained years of financial records, property deeds, text messages, and emails. I'd started backing everything up the day Marcus began working late with his new paralegal. Look at this, I said, showing Jim a particular email thread. 3 months ago, Sophia started asking about property transfers and marriage nullification. Marcus thought he was being clever using her private email, but he forgot I used to track digital forensics for a living. Jim whistled low as he scrolled through the evidence. He's not just trying to hide your marriage. He's been moving assets around, setting up shell companies. His eyes narrowed at a particular document. Is that the deed to your Vermont cabin? The one he claims is only in his name. I smiled. Check the original filing date. Jim's eyebrows shot up as he read. You bought it before the marriage, with your own money. From my 5 years of savings as an investigator, I confirmed. Marcus just assumed it was his because he's used to taking credit for everything. We spent the next hour going through the documentation. Every attempt Marcus had made to hide our marriage or shield assets had left a digital footprint. His mistake wasn't just in underestimating me. It was in forgetting what I did before I met him. One more thing, Jim said, pulling out a thick folder. Remember that fraud case you helped crack back in 15? The one with the falsified property records? I nodded, the pieces clicking into place. The Henderson case. The one where we proved digital tampering with county records. Exactly, and guess who just hired the same tech guy Henderson used? Jim pushed a surveillance photo across the desk. It showed Marcus meeting with a man I recognized from the old case files. Oh, Marcus, I sighed, shaking my head. You really should have Googled your hacker better. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Stopped by the house. Where are you? We need to talk about the property situation. I showed the message to Jim, who chuckled. Guess he's figured out he can't access the home security system anymore. Amazing what changing a few passwords can do, I replied, gathering my files. Think we have enough here? Jim nodded, his expression serious. More than enough. Want me to make some calls? I know a few judges who'd be very interested in this attempted records tampering. Not yet, I said, standing up. First, I want to give Marcus one chance to do the right thing. Not because he deserves it, but because I want him to know exactly what he's up against. Always the strategist, Jim smiled. Give him hell, Olivia. As I drove home, I thought about Marcus's face when he realized his clever plan wasn't so clever after all. He'd spent months orchestrating what he thought was the perfect escape. Hiding our marriage certificate, moving assets, setting up his new life with Sophia. All while assuming I was too trusting, too naive to notice. My phone buzzed again. Olivia, where are you? This is important. Call me. I pulled into our driveway, noticing Marcus's BMW parked on the street. He was sitting on the front steps, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. His confidence replaced by obvious agitation. Where have you been? He demanded, standing up as I approached. I've been trying to reach you all morning. I walked past him to unlock the door, my evidence files tucked safely in my bag. Sorry, I was at a meeting. About our marriage certificate, actually. He followed me inside, his footsteps faltering slightly. What do you mean, a meeting? I turned to face him, enjoying the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. You know, Marcus, for a lawyer, you really should be more careful about who you hire to hack government databases. The color drained from his face. For the first time since this all began, Marcus looked genuinely afraid. What exactly are you implying? Marcus asked, trying to regain his composure as we stood in our living room. His lawyer mask was slipping back into place, but I could see the panic in his eyes. I'm not implying anything, I replied calmly, setting my bag on the coffee table. I'm telling you that I have proof of your attempts to tamper with county records, hide assets, and fraudulently invalidate our marriage. Would you like to see the evidence? He sank into the armchair, his confidence crumbling. How did you? No. I finished for him. Marcus, did you forget what I did before we met? Financial crimes investigation isn't just a job title. It's a skill set. I pulled out my laptop and began opening files. Let's start with the cabin in Vermont. The one you claimed was yours? I bought it before we married. Here's the deed, the bank transfers, and my old pay stubs proving the source of funds. That's not, he started, but I cut him off. Then there's the matter of our marriage certificate. Did you really think hiring the same hacker from the Henderson case was smart? The case I helped prosecute. I turned the screen toward him, showing the access logs. Every attempt to alter those records is documented. Every email between you and Sophia about property transfers, tracked. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing the room. This is ridiculous. You're trying to intimidate me. Sophia's father is a judge. He'll never let. Judge Harrison. I smiled. The one who presided over the Henderson case? I'm sure he'd be very interested to know his daughter is involved in similar activities. That stopped him cold. You wouldn't. Try me. I closed my laptop. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus. You have two choices. First option, we handle this fairly. A clean divorce, equal property division, no games. I'll even let you keep the BMW you love so much. He swallowed hard. And the second option, I take everything I've found to the State Bar Association, the district attorney, and every judge in the circuit. Your law license, your reputation, your freedom, all gone. And Sophia? She'll be facing charges too. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice wavered. I pulled out my phone and dialed Jim's number, putting it on speaker. Hey Jim, we ready to move forward with those charges? Just say the word, Olivia. Jim's voice crackled through the speaker. The DA's been briefed, and Judge Harrison is particularly interested in the evidence involving his daughter. Marcus collapsed back into the chair, his face ashen. Turn it off. I ended the call, watching him process his complete loss of control. The man who thought he could outsmart everyone was finally realizing he'd been outplayed. Why? He asked quietly. Why not just turn me in? Because despite everything, I love you once, I replied honestly. And because I'd rather move forward than waste time on revenge. But make no mistake, if you try to fight this, I won't hesitate to use everything I have. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Finally, he looked up, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Respect. The prenup, he said. It's still valid. Even split, right? I nodded. That's all I ever wanted, Marcus, a fair ending. The next few weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and negotiations. True to his word, once broken, Marcus handled the divorce fairly. The marriage certificate mysteriously reappeared in our files, and all attempts to alter county records ceased. Sophia, faced with the prospect of charges and her father's disappointment, quickly distanced herself from the situation. Last I heard, she transferred to a firm in another state. As I stood in the cabin that autumn, watching leaves fall over the lake, I felt nothing but peace. Sometimes winning isn't about destroying your opponent. It's about being prepared, staying calm, and knowing when to show your hand. Jim called to check on me occasionally. You could have taken him for everything, he said during one call. Why didn't you? Because this way, I won something more valuable than property, I replied, sipping my coffee on the cabin's porch. I won my freedom, my dignity, and the knowledge that I never had to compromise who I am. The lake stretched out before me, calm and clear, reflecting the mountains like a mirror. Marcus had always underestimated this place, seeing it as just another asset. He never understood that its real value lay in the peace it offered, the strength it represented. I smiled, thinking about how differently things had turned out from what Marcus planned. He thought he was dealing with a knave wife he could easily deceive. Instead, he learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a woman who knows her worth and keeps receipts. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply showing someone exactly who you've been all along. This house belongs to my son. Pack your things and leave, Margaret shouted, waving some papers in my face. Her fancy clothes and perfect gray hair couldn't hide the anger in her eyes. I stood in my kitchen, sipping my coffee. This was the home I had renovated over the last 5 years, and now my mother-in-law was trying to take it from me. My name is Olivia Chin, and at 34, I never thought I'd be fighting for my home against the woman who had made my marriage miserable for 8 years. Did you hear me? Margaret snapped. This house belongs to James. It always has. I set my coffee down. Interesting timing, Margaret. James is away, and suddenly you show up with these papers. She smirked. There's nothing sudden about it. This house was bought with our family money. You have no right to stay, especially now that James has realized your marriage is over. I stayed calm. And what exactly has James realized? Margaret sat on my couch like she owned it. He's meeting with divorce lawyers. He finally understands that marrying someone like you was a mistake. I almost laughed. For years, she'd looked down on me, insulting my middle-class background and my job as a restoration architect. But her words didn't hurt anymore. I think you should check your facts, Margaret, I said, walking to my antique desk, the same one she once mocked me for buying. Margaret narrowed her eyes. What facts? I know everything about this family's property. Clearly you don't, I said, running my fingers along the desk. A couple of months ago, I found some old documents from 1985, the year this house was built. Do you remember that year? She hesitated. That's ancient history. It doesn't matter. It matters a lot, I said, because the original deed wasn't in your family's name at all. Margaret shot up from the couch, her papers falling to the floor. You're lying. No, you had fake copies. The real deed says this house belonged to Eleanor Wright, your husband's first wife, the woman you told everyone had abandoned him. But in truth— Shut up. Margaret's face turned pale. You made everyone believe Eleanor left, but she didn't. She died under mysterious circumstances, and this house was meant for her son, Thomas Wright, not James. The steps in you erased from the family history. Margaret's hands trembled. Those are lies. I found Thomas, I continued. He's a history professor in Oregon now. We talked. He remembers everything. And last week, he signed an affidavit reclaiming his inheritance, including this house. I showed her an email from my lawyer. The police are reopening Eleanor's case too. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. James will never believe you. He already knows, I said, picking up one of her fallen papers. He's not on a business trip. He's in Oregon, meeting Thomas. Turns out, he's not as loyal to you as you thought. Margaret's face crumbled. She gathered her papers with shaking hands. You've ruined everything, she hissed. This isn't over. You're right, I said, opening the front door. The police will be here tomorrow. You might want to get a lawyer. As she hurried to her car, I felt no joy, only sadness for the family she had broken. But at least now, the truth would finally come out. I picked up my coffee and looked out at the garden Eleanor had planted long ago. Her roses were blooming, their deep red petals proof that some roots run deeper than anyone realizes. My phone buzzed with a message from James. Just finished talking with Thomas. Coming home tomorrow. I'm so sorry for everything. Thank you for finding the truth. I smiled, touching the old deed in my pocket. Justice can come in unexpected ways, hidden in old furniture, and in the courage to face the past. The next morning, I sat in our living room across from Detective Sarah Mills, watching as she examined the documents I found in the secretary desk. The early morning light streamed through the windows, casting shadows across the worn papers that had changed everything. These are quite something, Detective Mills said, carefully placing the original deed back into its protective sleeve. And you found these while restoring the furniture? Yes. I nodded, remembering the moment the hidden compartment had sprung open. At first, I thought they were just old building records, but then I saw Eleanor's name and things started falling into place. The detective made another note in her pad. Mrs. Wright's death was ruled accidental at the time, a fall down the basement stairs. But there were questions that were never answered. Because Margaret made sure they weren't asked, James said quietly from beside me. He'd returned late last night, his meeting with Thomas having lasted longer than expected. The dark circles under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights and hard truths. Tell me about Thomas, Detective Mills prompted, turning to a fresh page. James ran a hand through his disheveled hair. I had no idea I had a brother. All these years, Mother told me she married my father when he was a young widower. She never mentioned Eleanor, never said anything about Thomas. His voice cracked slightly. He has her eyes, Eleanor's eyes. When I saw him yesterday, it was like seeing all the family photos Mother destroyed coming back to life. I squeezed his hand, feeling the slight tremor in his fingers. The past 24 hours had shaken his world to its core. Thomas remembers the night Eleanor died, I added, pulling out the signed statement he'd given us. He was 12, hiding at the top of the stairs. He saw Margaret and Eleanor arguing about the house. Eleanor had discovered something about Margaret's past, something that would have prevented her marriage to Thomas's father. Detective Mills leaned forward. And what was that? Margaret was still married to someone else, James said bitterly. Thomas found the proof. Marriage records that showed her first husband was very much alive when she married our father. Eleanor threatened to expose her, and then she had her accident, the detective finished, her expression grim. Why didn't Thomas come forward before? Margaret convinced everyone he'd run away, I explained. She intercepted his calls, forged letters to his father, even paid people to say they'd seen him in another state. By the time Thomas finally got back in contact, his father had died believing his son had abandoned him. The detective's phone buzzed, and she checked it quickly. The forensics team is ready to examine the basement. With your permission. James nodded numbly. As the detective left to coordinate with her team, he turned to me, his eyes haunted. How did I not see it? All these years, the way she controlled everything, everyone. She even tried to control us. She almost succeeded. I reminded him gently. Remember last year, when she almost convinced you to put the house in her name for tax purposes? He grimaced. If you hadn't insisted on having our lawyer review everything, God, Olivia, I'm so sorry. For all the times I didn't stand up to her, for letting her treat you like an outsider. Hey, I touched his cheek, making him look at me. You're standing up to her now. That's what matters. The sound of cars pulling up outside drew our attention. Through the window, we saw Margaret being escorted from a police car, her usual impeccable appearance replaced by something more frantic. Behind her, another car arrived and a tall man stepped out, his gray streaked hair and familiar eyes unmistakable. Thomas, James whispered, standing up. He came. We met them at the front door. The two brothers, separated by 30 years of lies, faced each other in the morning light. Then Thomas stepped forward and hugged James, decades of lost time conveyed in that simple gesture. I'm sorry, Thomas said as they pulled apart. I should have tried harder to find you, to tell you the truth. You're here now, James replied, his voice rough with emotion. That's what matters. Margaret, standing between two officers, watched this reunion with visible distaste. This proves nothing, she snapped. You can't believe the words of a runaway who abandoned his family. Thomas turned to her, his expression calm but firm. I didn't run away, Margaret. You made sure I couldn't come home. But I never stopped trying to find the truth about what happened to my mother. Mrs. Anderson. Detective Mills emerged from the house, holding an evidence bag. We found something interesting in the basement. Traces of blood behind the old wood paneling. Blood that's been there for 30 years. Would you like to explain that? Margaret's composure finally shattered completely. She was going to ruin everything, she hissed. All my careful plans, my new life. I couldn't let her destroy that. The detective nodded to the officers, who began reading Margaret her rights. As they led her to the police car, she turned back one last time, her eyes wild. James, don't let them do this. I'm your mother. But James stood firm, his brother beside him, as Margaret was taken away. The web of lies she'd woven had finally unraveled, bringing down the careful facade she'd maintained for 3 decades. Thomas walked slowly into the house, his hand trailing along the wallpaper. Mom loved this place, he said softly. She used to say it was where our family would always be together. James joined him, looking around as if seeing the house for the first time. Tell me about her, please. As the brothers settled in the living room, sharing memories and bridging the years of separation, I slipped quietly into the kitchen to make coffee. Through the window, I could see Eleanor's roses swaying in the breeze, their blooms a vibrant reminder that truth, like flowers, can emerge from the darkest places. 6 months after Margaret's arrest, I stood in Eleanor's garden, planting new roses alongside the old ones. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and fresh earth. So much had changed since that confrontation in our living room. Yet some things remained constant, like these roses, stubborn and beautiful, refusing to be erased. Need a hand? Thomas's voice called from the patio. He'd been staying with us while the legal proceedings continued, helping piece together the fragments of their broken family history. Always I smiled, handing him a trowel. These heritage roses are from the same nursery Eleanor used to buy from. Thomas knelt beside me, his hands expertly working the soil. Mom would love this. She always said a garden needs old and new growth to thrive. He paused, a familiar shadow crossing his face. The detective called this morning. Margaret took the plea deal. I sat back on my heels, watching his expression carefully. How do you feel about that? 20 years, he said quietly. It doesn't bring Mom back, but at least now everyone knows the truth. No more hiding, no more lies. The sound of James's car pulling into the driveway drew our attention. He'd been meeting with the family lawyer, finalizing the paperwork to legally restore Thomas's inheritance. My husband looked different these days, lighter somehow, as if uncovering the truth had freed him from a weight he carried his whole life. It's done, he announced, joining us in the garden. The house is officially in both our names, Thomas, just like Mom wanted. He looked around at the half-planted roses. Need another gardener? I handed him a pair of gloves. Eleanor's garden could always use more love. As we worked together, I thought about the documents found in that old desk, not just the deed, but Eleanor's letters and diary entries. She'd written about her hopes for her sons, her dreams for this house as a place where family could heal and grow. In a way, 30 years later, her wish was finally coming true. The investigation had revealed more than just Margaret's crimes. We discovered that Eleanor had been a talented artist, her paintings stored away in the attic by Margaret. Thomas and James spent evenings going through them, their mother's vision of the world captured in vibrant oils and soft watercolors. I'm thinking of opening the gallery, Thomas said, patting soil around a new rose bush. Showing Mom's work, maybe featuring other local artists too. There's that empty storefront downtown. James nodded enthusiastically. The old Miller building? It's perfect. Those big windows, the natural light. He turned to me. What do you think, Olivia? Want to help restore another piece of history? I felt warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the autumn sun. This was what Eleanor had wanted, her sons working together, building something meaningful, turning pain into possibility. I'd love to, I said. We could preserve the original architecture while creating a modern gallery space. Honor the past while embracing the future. Later that evening, after Thomas had gone home, James and I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The newly planted roses cast long shadows across the lawn, their silhouettes merging with Eleanor's original garden. "Thank you," James said softly, taking my hand. "For not giving up, for finding the truth, for bringing my brother back to me." I squeezed his hand. "I just restored an old desk. Eleanor did the real work. She left us everything we needed to uncover the truth. She knew someone would find it eventually." "She would have loved you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have her spirit, her way of seeing beauty in broken things and making them whole again." Inside the house, Eleanor's painting of the garden, newly restored and framed, hung in a living room. Thomas had found it hidden behind other canvases, dated just days before her death. In it, red roses bloomed against a storm-dark sky, their petals catching the light like flames. The doorbell rang, and I knew it would be Detective Mills with updates about Margaret's sentencing. But for this moment, I stayed where I was, watching the real garden merge with its painted twin in the fading light. Two versions of the same dream, one from the past, one unfolding now, finally in harmony. "Ready?" James asked, standing and offering his hand. I nodded, rising to face whatever came next. After all, that's what this house had always been about, facing truth with courage, nurturing growth through adversity, and believing in the power of love to outlast lies. Eleanor had known it. She'd hidden proof of that love in the heart of this house, trusting that someday someone would find it, and in finding it, we'd all found our way home. "It's ruined, all ruined," my future mother-in-law, Sarah, shouted in the bridal shop. She stood over my wedding dress, now ripped into pieces, the delicate lace and silk lace scattered on the floor. "Now Amber will have to wear her own dress." "What a shame," she said with fake sympathy. I stared at my destroyed dress, my hands shaking. My name is Victoria Chen, and at 28, I just watched my future mother-in-law destroy the dress I had designed for my wedding. "How could you do this?" I asked, picking up a piece of the dress. Sarah smirked, her expensive heels crushing the fabric. "Oh honey, it's for the best," she said. "Amber's wedding is in 3 months, and this dress would have been perfect for her. You were selfish not to share." Amber, my future sister-in-law, wanted my dress from the moment she saw it. She didn't care that I had designed it myself, pouring months of work into every stitch. She didn't care that I was marrying her brother, Michael, in just 2 weeks. Michael walked in, his eyes widening at the scene. "Mom, what have you done?" he asked. "I'm protecting our family," Sarah said proudly. "Victoria refused to give Amber the dress, so I had to step in. Amber is my daughter. She deserves this more than an outsider." I looked at Michael, waiting for him to stand up for me. Instead, he sighed, running his hands through his hair. "Vicky, maybe we can find you another dress?" he said weakly. "Something off the rack, just to keep the peace." Something inside me changed. For a year, I had tried to fit into their family, staying quiet when Sarah insulted me, letting Amber take the spotlight. But not anymore. "You're right, Michael," I said, standing up. "Peace is important." Sarah looked confused as I took out my phone. "Hello, this is Victoria Chen. I'd like to report property damage at Chen Bridal Boutique. Yes, I have video proof." I glanced at the security camera in the corner. Sarah hadn't noticed it. Her face turned pale. "You wouldn't dare." "Michael, tell her she can't do this to me." I walked toward the door. "The police will be here soon. You can explain why you destroyed a $15,000 wedding dress." I looked at Michael. "The wedding is still on, but you should think about whose side you're on." As I left, my phone buzzed. It was Amber. "You're just jealous because I'd look better in it anyway." I smiled. What Sarah destroyed wasn't my real wedding dress. It was a fake, a test. My real dress was safe in my studio, a dress as unique as me. I drove to my studio, where I had built my own design business, even though the Matthews family called it a cute hobby. Inside, behind a locked door, hung my real wedding dress. A masterpiece. My phone rang. It was my best friend, Lily. "I just got your text. Did Sarah really destroy your dress? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, touching the beadwork on my real dress. "Actually, I'm better than fine. I finally see them for who they are, and I'm done playing their games." Lily laughed. "So what's the plan?" I thought about Sarah's smug face, Michael's weakness, Amber's selfishness. Then I smiled. "The wedding is still on," I said. but it won't be what they expect. I looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't the woman who had spent a year trying to please the Matthews family. I was stronger now. The next 2 weeks would change everything. And I was ready. The next 2 weeks flew by in a blur of preparations and tense silences. Sarah avoided legal trouble for destroying my fake wedding dress. Michael had begged me to drop the charges for family harmony, but the damage was done. Their perfect family image had cracked. I focused on finishing my real wedding dress, working late nights in my studio. Every stitch, every crystal was a silent act of defiance. This dress wasn't just for a wedding, it was a statement. 3 days before the wedding, Sarah hosted a family dinner at her mansion. She sat at the head of the table, acting like a queen. "It's such a shame about Victoria's dress," she announced. "But I've taken care of everything." I ordered her a lovely designer gown, simple, but appropriate for someone of her background. Amber laughed. At least now she won't outshine me at my own brother's wedding. I looked at Michael, hoping he'd defend me, but he just stared at his plate, pretending not to hear. Sarah smiled smugly. "The dress arrives tomorrow. Size 6, though you might want to watch what you eat this week, dear." I calmly took a sip of water. "That's very thoughtful, Sarah, but I've already handled the dress situation." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly could you afford on such short notice? Something from the mall?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and smiled. "Excuse me, I need to take this call. It's from Vogue." The silence as I left the dining room was perfect. The next morning, my studio was buzzing with photographers. The magazine shoot I'd arranged weeks ago was in full swing. My real wedding dress, a blend of modern design and traditional Chinese elements, was being featured in an article about emerging designers. "This is stunning," the journalist said, admiring the details. "You're going to make waves." I nodded, thinking about how Sarah always dismissed my heritage and never saw my talent. Then, a message popped up on my phone. It was from Michael. "Mom's furious about the Vogue thing. Says you're making the wedding all about you. Maybe we should postpone." I stared at his words. He still couldn't stand up to her. He wanted me to shrink myself for the rest of my life. "No postponement," I typed back. "But think carefully about whether you're ready for a wife who won't stay silent to keep the peace." The day before the wedding, Sarah's replacement dress arrived at my apartment. It was a plain white gown, cheap and lifeless. The note attached read, "Wear this. Don't embarrass our family, Sarah." I hung it next to my real dress and laughed. Tomorrow, everything would change. That evening, Lily showed up with takeout. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. "You could walk away and avoid all the drama." I ran my fingers over the beadwork of my dress. "I'm not walking away. Tomorrow isn't just about a wedding. It's about showing them exactly who I am." "And Michael?" she asked. "Is he worth it?" I thought about his silence, his loyalty to his mother over me. Tomorrow will answer that too. Late that night, Sarah sent one final message. "Remember, family comes first. Don't make a scene tomorrow." I smiled and replied, "Don't worry. Everyone will get exactly what they deserve." As I set my phone down, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same one who had watched her dress get destroyed 2 weeks ago. She was stronger. Tomorrow wasn't just a wedding. It was a reckoning. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. The grand ballroom of the Four Seasons was decorated exactly to Sarah's specifications. All white and gold, elegant but safe. Predictable. I waited in the bridal suite, listening to the growing murmur of guests arriving. Sarah had already stopped by twice, ostensibly to check on me, but really to ensure I was wearing her chosen dress. "The ceremony starts in an hour," she announced during her third visit, barging in without knocking. "Are you?" Her voice trailed off as she saw the garment bag hanging on the door. "That's not the dress I sent." "No," I said calmly, applying my lipstick. "It's not." Sarah's face reddened. "You will not ruin this day with your stubbornness. I won't allow it." "You don't have to allow anything," I replied, standing up. "This is my wedding, and I'm done letting you dictate my choices." She stormed out, no doubt to complain to Michael. I took a deep breath and unzipped the garment bag, revealing my creation in all its glory. The dress was a fusion of cultures and innovation. Traditional Chinese red silk merged seamlessly with modern architectural elements, hand-beaded crystals catching the light like stars. It wasn't just a wedding dress. It was a statement of identity. Lily helped me into it, tears in her eyes. "You look incredible," she whispered. "They won't know what hit them." The doors to the ballroom opened and the wedding march began. I could see Sarah's face from where I stood, her smug smile frozen as she waited to see me in her choice of dress. Amber sat beside her, already practicing her sympathetic grimace. Then I stepped into view. The collective gasp was audible. Sarah's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Amber's mouth hung open, all pretense of superiority forgotten. But I wasn't watching them. I was watching Michael, standing at the altar, seeing the exact moment he realized what was at stake. His eyes widened, taking in the dress, the confidence, the woman I'd become. I walked down the aisle slowly, head held high. The photographers Sarah had hired were clicking frantically, capturing every moment. What she didn't know was that they were also shooting for my Vogue feature. When I reached the altar, Michael whispered, "You look amazing." But my mother. I cut him off quietly. "Your mother doesn't control me anymore. The question is, does she still control you?" The officiant began the ceremony, but before Michael could say his vows, Sarah stood up. "This is unacceptable," she announced to the assembled guests. "This isn't what we planned." "No," I agreed, turning to face her. "It's better. This is who I am, a designer, a businesswoman, and someone who won't be diminished to make others comfortable." I looked at Michael. "So what's it going to be? Are you ready to stand with me, or are you going to let your mother decide this too?" The silence that followed felt eternal. Then Michael stepped back, his face apologetic. "I can't. I'm sorry." I nodded, having expected this moment. "I know," I said softly, then louder, to our guests. "Thank you all for coming. While there won't be a wedding today, please stay and enjoy the reception. Consider it the launch party for my new bridal collection." As chaos erupted around us, I walked back down the aisle, this time alone but stronger than ever. Behind me, I could hear Sarah's indignant shrieks, Amber's dramatic sobs, and the excited murmur of guests who knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. The next day, my phone was flooded with messages about the Vogue article. My design was being hailed as revolutionary, orders were pouring in, and several major retailers wanted to discuss partnerships. Sarah's carefully planned society wedding had become my stepping stone to success, and my ruined decoy dress had led to something far more valuable, my freedom. 6 months later, I opened my flagship store. The display window featured 2 dresses, the shredded remains of the decoy, artfully arranged, and beside it my red wedding dress, a symbol of resilience and authenticity. Above them hung a sign that read, "Sometimes destruction leads to creation. Victoria Chen Bridal." I never did send Sarah a thank you note for destroying that first dress. But I did send her a copy of Vogue, with my story splashed across its pages. After all, she'd always said family should share everything. Marcus tossed his expensive watch onto the kitchen counter, sneering. "I'm leaving you for Ashley. The house is mine, so don't even ask." I sipped my coffee and smiled. Check again. His smug expression faltered. "My name is Olivia, and at 35, my husband of 12 years was leaving me for a 23-year-old. But I wasn't begging him to stay." "What do you mean?" he demanded. I set my mug down. "Just suggesting you check your facts." His eyes narrowed. "Don't play games. Ashley is young, exciting, everything you're not. And this house? It's mine. Always has been." I watched him strut around, so sure of himself. "You know what your problem is, Olivia? You got boring. Ashley supports my dreams." "You mean your real estate project?" I asked. His face twitched, but he quickly recovered. "Exactly. She believes in me, unlike you. You always played it safe. Like when I questioned your land deal last year. 'That deal will make me millions,' he snapped." I walked to our home office, and he followed. "Practical?" I mused. "Like keeping copies of all our financial records? Like hiring a private investigator?" He hesitated. "What?" I turned to face him. "Did you think I didn't know? About Ashley? The money? Her sudden promotion?" His face paled. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I opened my laptop. "Remember those bank papers you had me sign?" His confidence cracked. Those were routine updates. I smirked. No, they were transfer papers. You tried to move our joint assets into your account, but I signed decoys. That's impossible, he whispered. Did you forget? I was a financial fraud investigator before we married. He grabbed the laptop, his hands shaking. These must be fake. They're real, just like the proof of your fraud and embezzlement. He slammed the laptop shut. You can't prove anything. I walked to the safe, opened it, and pulled out a folder. Would you like to see the photos first or the bank records? This is ridiculous. He turned toward the door. Ashley is waiting for me. I raised an eyebrow. She might be rethinking things. She called last week, after a talk with her boss about company policies on office relationships. His face went ashen. His perfect plan was crumbling. What do you want? He finally asked. I sat down, crossing my legs. Now that's the right question. Let's talk about what happens next. Marcus realized too late he had underestimated me, and now his world was about to change in ways he never expected. The next morning, I sat across from my lawyer, Sarah, watching her review the evidence I gathered. Her office was quiet except for the occasional rustle of papers and her soft whistles of appreciation. This is incredible, Olivia, she said, looking up from the documents. You've built an airtight case. The financial records, the surveillance photos, the witness statements from his coworkers. It's all here. I nodded, thinking about Marcus's face when he'd slunk out of the house last night, tail between his legs. He tried calling Ashley immediately, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Apparently, the anonymous tip about her involvement in financial irregularities had already reached her supervisor. What happened after you confronted him? Sarah asked, organizing the papers into neat piles. He tried to backtrack, of course. Claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that Ashley meant nothing to him. I smiled, remembering his desperate attempts to regain control of the situation. Then he tried threatening me, said no one would believe me, that he'd deny everything. Sarah raised an eyebrow. And I played him the recording of our conversation from last night. Turns out my phone catches audio quite clearly when it's sitting on the kitchen counter. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. We need to talk. Please, I'll do anything. I showed it to Sarah, who smirked. They always want to talk once they realize they've lost the upper hand. What are you thinking? I leaned back in my chair, considering my options. I want him to understand exactly what he's losing. Not just the house or the money, but everything he's built. His reputation, his career, his future. With this evidence, Sarah said, tapping the folders, we can make that happen. The company's board will be particularly interested in these financial records. And once they start investigating, his whole house of cards will collapse. I finished. Another text from Marcus. Ashley's not answering my calls. What did you do? I smiled, thinking of the anonymous email I'd sent to Ashley's department head, detailing the suspicious timing of her promotion and certain financial transactions. Nothing explicitly incriminating, just enough to raise serious questions. Did you know, I told Sarah, that Ashley's been telling everyone at their office that Marcus was separated? That I was the bitter ex who wouldn't let go. I shook my head. She had no idea she was just another pawn in his game. Sarah started laying out documents for me to sign. The board meeting is tomorrow morning. Once they see these records, Marcus's career at the company will be over, I said quietly. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, exactly. More like vindication. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ashley. We need to talk. Marcus says you're trying to ruin everything. He says you're lying about the money. I showed Sarah the message. Should I respond? Not yet, she advised. Let them stew. They'll both be getting calls from HR soon anyway. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a call from Marcus's office number. I let it go to voicemail. Tell me about the house, Sarah said, moving on to another folder. You said you had the deed transferred? I nodded, pulling out the property documents. Marcus never read anything I put in front of him carefully. Too busy planning his next conquest, I suppose. Last month, I had him sign transfer papers buried in a stack of routine documents. Clever, Sarah commented, and completely legal since he signed willingly. He always underestimated me, I said softly. Thought I was just the boring wife who kept his life running smoothly. He never realized I was protecting myself all along. My phone buzzed with another message from Marcus. The board wants to see me tomorrow morning. What have you done? Sarah watched me read the message. Are you sure you want to go through with this? We can negotiate a quieter settlement. I thought about all the nights I'd spent alone while Marcus was with Ashley, all the times he dismissed my concerns about his risky financial decisions, all the years he'd taken me for granted. No, I said firmly, he needs to face the consequences of his actions. All of them. Just then, an email notification popped up on my phone from Ashley's work account. I just got called into HR. They're asking questions about my promotion. Please tell me you didn't send them anything. Marcus says you're trying to destroy us. Destroy them? I showed Sarah the email. They did that to themselves. Sarah gathered the documents into her briefcase. The board meeting is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Are you ready for what comes next? I thought about Marcus's face when he realized how thoroughly I documented everything. The panic in his eyes when he understood that his perfect plan was falling apart. More than ready, I replied. They never saw me coming because they never really saw me at all. Tomorrow, that changes. As I left Sarah's office, my phone lit up with messages from both Marcus and Ashley, each more desperate than the last. They were finally realizing that their actions had consequences, that the comfortable life they'd planned together was crumbling. I drove home to our house, my house now, and walked through the rooms that held so many memories. Marcus had always treated our marriage like a convenience, something he could discard when something better came along. He never understood that while he was plotting his escape, I was quietly building my fortress. Tomorrow, the board would see the evidence. Tomorrow, Marcus and Ashley would face questions they couldn't answer. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, I sat in my quiet kitchen, sipping tea and reading the increasingly frantic messages appearing on my phone. Each one showed me how deeply I'd shaken their confidence, how thoroughly I'd disrupted their plans. Please, Marcus's latest text read, "We can work this out. I'll give you anything you want." I smiled, thinking of the evidence safely stored in Sarah's office. You already have, I whispered to myself. You just didn't know it. The board meeting was everything I expected and more. I sat quietly in the back of the conference room, watching Marcus sweat through his expensive shirt as the directors reviewed the evidence. Mr. Parker, the board chairman's voice cut through the tense silence, would you care to explain these financial discrepancies? Marcus tugged at his collar, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. There's been a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Please do, the chairman replied coldly. Start with explaining why company funds were redirected to personal accounts and how Ms. Thompson received a senior position despite having no qualifications. In the corner, Ashley sat pale and rigid, her youth suddenly a liability rather than an asset. She wouldn't meet anyone's eyes, especially not Marcus's pleading looks in her direction. Marcus started, then stopped. For the first time in our marriage, he was speechless. The evidence spoke for itself. Unauthorized transfers, fabricated reports, and a clear pattern of financial manipulation. Every document was meticulously organized, every transaction traced to its source. Given the severity of these allegations, the chairman continued, the board has no choice but to terminate your employment effectively immediately. Ms. Thompson, the same applies to you. Ashley burst into tears. Marcus just sat there, staring at the table as his carefully constructed world crumbled around him. After the meeting, I found him sitting alone in the lobby, head in his hands. He looked up as I approached, his face a mask of defeat. Why? He asked hoarsely. Why did you do this? I didn't do this, Marcus. You did. Every choice, every lie, every betrayal, those were all yours. I just made sure you couldn't hide them anymore. He stood up, desperation in his eyes. The house, we can still work something out. I'll sign whatever you want. The house is already mine, I reminded him, and there's nothing left to work out. Olivia, please, he grabbed my arm. I've lost everything. I gently removed his hand. No, Marcus, you threw everything away. There's a difference. As if on cue, Ashley stormed past us, mascara streaking her face. You ruined everything, she shouted at Marcus. You said you had it all under control. I watched their final argument unfold in the corporate lobby, neither of them even noticing me slip away. Outside, Sarah was waiting by her car. How did it go? She asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. Exactly as expected, I replied. The board found everything they needed in those files. And Marcus, currently discovering that his young girlfriend isn't interested in an unemployed, disgraced ex-executive. Sarah laughed. What's next for you? I looked up at the bright sky, feeling lighter than I had in years. I think it's time for a vacation. The house has a beautiful view, perfect for watching sunsets and planning new beginnings. Later that evening, as I sat on my patio enjoying a glass of wine, my phone lit up with one final text from Marcus. I understand now. I'm sorry I never saw you clearly before. I didn't respond. Some revelations come too late, and some apologies matter less than the lessons learned. Instead, I watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, thinking about how sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world. It's about rebuilding your own stronger than before. Marcus had thought he was writing the end of our story when he chose Ashley. Instead, he'd only written the end of his chapter in my life. My story was just beginning, and this time, I was the only one holding the pen. The next morning, I woke up to news that Marcus had left town, his dreams of real estate empire building shattered along with his reputation. Ashley had already updated her LinkedIn profile, carefully omitting her brief tenure at the company. As for me, I had a house with a view, a future full of possibilities, and a satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't anger or vengeance. It's simply showing them exactly who they underestimated. I picked up my coffee and stepped out onto the patio, breathing in the fresh morning air. The garden needed attention, and I had plans for renovating the kitchen. Small changes perhaps, but they would make this place truly mine. Life has a way of teaching us the lessons we need to learn, even when they come wrapped in painful packages. Marcus had taught me that I was stronger than I knew, more capable than he'd ever given me credit for. And that perhaps was the greatest gift he'd ever given me, even if he'd never meant to. The house, my future, my life, they were all mine now, earned through careful planning and quiet strength. Sometimes the best victories are the ones no one sees coming, especially from the woman they thought they could leave behind. The crystal chandelier cast long shadows over the dining room as my father stood at the head of the table. He had perfect posture, a habit from his military days. The old grandfather clock in the corner struck 7. As you all know, he began, his voice firm, Ashworth Manor has been in our family for 5 generations. Now it's time to secure its future. I sat quietly, running my fingers over the wooden table where I'd spent so many family dinners. My brother James leaned back in our grandfather's chair, a smug smile on his face. He already knew what was coming. James will take over the estate, Dad announced. He'll manage everything, the house, the land, the investments. It's time for the next generation to lead. My mother nodded. It's the natural order of things, she said. I thought of Great Aunt Martha. 3 months ago, she had pressed a small brass key into my hand. The blue room, she had whispered. When the time comes, remember the blue room. Dad's voice pulled me back to the present. And Olivia, you'll get the guest cottage. It's a generous offer, considering you chose marine biology instead of learning estate management. James smirked. Don't worry, sis. You can still visit the main house when I'm not entertaining. The cottage. A pretty way to keep me close, but without power. I thought of the women who had built this estate, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and Great-Aunt Martha. They had shaped Ashworth Manor in ways no one seemed to remember. I see, I said calmly. My father hesitated, surprised by my reaction. Well, that's settled, he said, reaching for the transfer papers. We'll sign everything tomorrow. That night, I went to the East Wing. The blue room had been Great-Aunt Martha's private study. The brass key felt warm in my hand as I unlocked the door. The room smelled of old books and history. Moonlight streamed in, shining on her desk. I traced my fingers over the bookshelves, remembering her words. This estate wasn't built by men alone, Olivia. The women of Ashworth Manor have always been its true guardians. Behind her portrait, just as she had said, I found the wall safe. The key fit perfectly. Inside was a thick envelope sealed with the family crest. James had always seen the estate as a symbol of status. He never cared about its history. He laughed at my interest in the gardens and archives. Playing house won't make you the heir, he had teased. But Great-Aunt Martha had seen things differently. She had spent years preparing me for this moment. As I read through the documents, a smile formed on my lips. Tomorrow my father would learn the truth. Great Aunt Martha had created a trust 30 years ago. No major decision about the estate could be made without approval from both a male and female heir. My phone buzzed. A message from James. Don't be difficult tomorrow. The cottage really is the best option for you. I placed the papers back in the safe and locked it. Tomorrow would change everything. Before heading back, I stopped at the family graveyard and lay fresh roses on Great Aunt Martha's grave. Thank you, I whispered. I'll protect what you built. As I walked back to the manor, its lights glowing warmly in the night, I knew one thing for sure. Ashworth Manor's future wasn't my father's alone to decide, and I was ready to fight for my place in its legacy. The next morning's meeting in the estate's mahogany panel library felt like a carefully orchestrated play. Father's lawyer, Mr. Peterson, arranged his papers meticulously while James paced by the window, occasionally checking his reflection in the glass. Let's make this quick, James said, checking his watch. I have plans to meet the developers about modernizing the East Wing. I sat in Great Aunt Martha's favorite armchair, the trust documents tucked safely in my bag. My mother perched on the edge of her seat, anxiously smoothing her skirt. Now then, Mr. Peterson began. The transfer documents are straightforward. Mr. Ashworth will retain life rights to the cottage on the grounds, while the main estate transfers to James, effective immediately. Actually, I interrupted softly, there's something you should see first. I withdrew the envelope, watching my father's expression shift from annoyance to curiosity. What's this? He demanded as I handed the documents to Mr. Peterson. Great Aunt Martha's trust agreement, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Created in 1993 and registered with the family's long-standing law firm in London. Mr. Peterson's eyes widened as he read through the papers. This changes everything, he muttered. What do you mean? James snapped, striding over to peer at the documents. The estate was placed in an irrevocable trust 30 years ago. Mr. Peterson explained, his professional demeanor slipping slightly according to these terms. Any major decisions regarding Ashworth Manor require joint approval from both male and female heirs. The color drained from my father's face. That's impossible. Martha would have told me. Would you have listened? I asked quietly. You barely paid attention when she tried to discuss estate management with you. James snatched the papers from Mr. Peterson. This can't be legally binding, he sputtered. It's ridiculous. I've seen these documents before, Mr. Peterson admitted. They're quite real and quite binding. Martha Ashworth was thorough in her legal preparations. My mother finally found her voice. But what about tradition? The estate has always passed to the eldest son. That tradition, I said, was actually broken several times. Great-grandmother Elizabeth ran the estate during the war. Grandmother Rose managed all financial decisions in the 1960s. Great-aunt Martha doubled our holdings in the last 30 years. The women of this family have always been more than decorative figureheads. James threw the papers onto the desk. This is just like you, isn't it? Always having to prove something. You couldn't just be happy with the cottage. The cottage was never the point, James. This isn't about where I live. It's about preserving what generations of our family built. Something you'd understand if you'd ever bothered to learn our real history. Father slumped in his chair, looking suddenly older. Martha knew. All this time, she knew this would happen. She knew you tried to exclude me, I corrected gently, just like she was excluded until she fought her way into management. She wanted to ensure that pattern wouldn't continue. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. Given these circumstances, I suggest we adjourn to review the full implications of the trusts. Any transfer documents signed today would be invalid. James stormed out, slamming the library door hard enough to rattle the family portraits on the walls. Mother followed, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. My father remained staring at me with a mixture of anger and something that might have been respect. You're more like Martha than I realize, he said finally. I'll take that as a compliment, I replied, gathering my things. When you're ready to discuss actual estate management, including preservation of the historical wings rather than modern development, I'll be in Great Aunt Martha's study. There's quite a lot in her records that we should review. As I walked through the manor's familiar halls, I felt the presence of all the strong women who'd come before me. They each faced their own battles to protect and improve this place. Now it was my turn. In the blue room, I opened the curtains wide, letting sunlight flood the space. On Martha's desk, next to her favorite fountain pen, I placed a framed photo. 4 generations of Ashworth women standing proud in front of the manor. Soon, there would be decisions to make, challenges to face. But for now, I simply sat in my great-aunt's chair, knowing I was exactly where I belonged. The estate would have its female guardian once again. 3 months after the trust revelation, Ashworth Manor hummed with a different kind of energy. The autumn leaves painted the grounds in rich golds and crimsons as I walked the perimeter with our heritage consultant, discussing restoration plans for the Victorian greenhouse. James had finally started attending management meetings, though his initial resistance had been fierce. His developer friend's grand modernization plans had been firmly shelved, replaced by historically sensitive renovations that would actually preserve the estate's value. The original blueprints your great-aunt preserved are invaluable, the consultant remarked, examining the greenhouse's intricate ironwork. We can restore this exactly as your great-grandmother designed it. I smiled, remembering Martha's meticulous records. She preserved everything, knowing someday it would matter. Later that afternoon, I found my father in the library, reviewing the estate's quarterly accounts. He looked up as I entered, his expression softening slightly. The trust fund investments Martha made are performing better than expected, he said, gesturing to the papers. She really did know what she was doing. She tried to tell you that for years, I replied, sitting across from him. All of them did. He nodded slowly. I've been reading through the old records. The decisions your grandmother made during the market crash of '73, they saved this place. I never knew. Because you never asked, I said gently. We were always more than just daughters and sisters. We were stewards. A knock at the door interrupted us. James entered, looking uncomfortable but determined. The Historical Society called, he said. They want to feature the manor in their Heritage Homes publication. Apparently, they're particularly interested in the women's history here. Great-Aunt Martha would have loved that, I said, watching my brother's face. Listen, he sighed. I've been thinking. Maybe we could restore the East Wing Conservatory instead of building that modern extension. The original plans you found, they make more sense. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd get, and I accepted it with a nod. I'd like that. We could make it a showcase piece for the Historical Society. Mother found us all still in the library as evening approached. She hesitated in the doorway, then straightened her shoulders. I've been going through Martha's papers too, she admitted. I never realized, all these years I thought tradition meant keeping things the same. But our family's real tradition was adaptation. Progress. The women of this house, they built while they preserved. I thought of Martha's last words to me, the papers will protect you, but your strength will save this place. The manor's future was securing itself in ways I hadn't expected. James was learning to value preservation over profit. Father was discovering the rich history he'd overlooked. Even Mother was beginning to see beyond the rigid roles she'd accepted without question. That night, I sat in a blue room, adding my own notes to Martha's meticulous records. The trust had given me legal standing, but the real work was in proving myself a worthy guardian of this legacy. A photo on my desk caught my eye, taken just last week. It showed 4 generations of Ashworth women, but this time it included a new face. James's daughter Emma, born 2 months after the trust revelation. She sat perched on my lap, her curious eyes already taking in the grand house that would someday be part of her heritage too. I wrote her name carefully in the family record, just as Martha had recorded mine years ago. The future of Ashworth Manor would need all its children, sons and daughters alike, to understand and protect its legacy. Outside my window, the manor's lights glowed warmly against the darkening sky. The same lights that had guided generations of Ashworth's home, now illuminating a path forward that honored both tradition and progress. Great-Aunt Martha's trust had done more than protect my rights. It had forced us all to confront our prejudices, to recognize the strength that comes from embracing all of our family's capabilities. The true legacy of Ashworth Manor wasn't in its ancient stones or sprawling grounds, but in the wisdom of those who'd understood that preservation requires both change and constancy. I closed the ledger, smiling at the portrait of Martha that washed over the blue room. We're all right, I whispered. The manor is in good hands, and somewhere I knew my great-aunt was smiling too.